Good morning, everybody. It is election day. I am wearing my election sweater. 4 elections I've worn this bad boy. Proud to wear the American flag. The day is here, November 8th, and get out and vote. Now let's take a look at the overnight action here at MarketStream.live. I am Joe Cusick with the Cusick Group, securities provided by MoneyBlock. Taking a look at the equity in the Asian Pacific region, we had basically a slightly mixed to flat line kind of trade that we saw overnight. What we did see, though, is that I'm looking at the yen right now, had some modest strength in the session. The currency had been on the defensive with the strength in the dollar, and we see it now basically this morning trading around 104.75 against the buck. We also saw some concerning trade data that came out from China this morning. We'll talk about that, but that has put China a little bit on edge. We saw that it was the foreign reserves fell to about 3.12 trillion. That's the lowest level that I believe that we've seen since 2011, so we want to keep an eye on that. Let's take a look at Japan's Nikkei. It just ended right below flatline. That was probably the weakest of all the Asian Pacific Rim markets. 7 sectors ended in the red, with healthcare leading the way down 0.8%. Also saw some consumer staple names down about 0.6%, and showing relative weakness in financials. But actually we saw a late rally, and the sector finished up about 0.7%. So that weakness really started to pull off. And energy was up about 0.1%. Now, Japan Steelworks, that tumbled about 12%. In reaction to basically their results. They were underwhelming at best. You're also seeing Takata Pharmaceutical, Family Mart, they all lost between 1.5% and 4.8%. We did see on the upside, though, Suzuki Motors, Sumitomo Metal Mining, and Toto, they all gained between 1.8%, and I believe Toto finished the day up 3.5%. Yep, seen across the tape. So there was some solid movement on the upside in those names. We'll see if that continues here in the States. Take a look at EWJ, the ETF that tracks Japanese stocks, trading around 49.87. That was the close, pricing in a potential move into November expiration, which isn't in a couple weeks, plus or minus $1.50 in the underlying. The implied volatility, so that's our level of expected move, is around 22%, and that ranks, as far as over the last 52 weeks, around mid-level, around 44%. So there's an expectation of some decent move. Looking at the yen proxy here, the ETF that tracks the yen here in the United States that trades during our market hours, FXY, trading at 92.37 right now. It's pricing in the potential for the stock to move in about $1.37 either up or down. Implied volatility is at 12%, and that's the 57% rank. IV rank, so it's actually heightened. The yen looks like it could have some move into it going into November expiration on those options and in that underlying. Taking a look at Hong Kong and the Hang Seng, added about 0.5%. Consumer listings were the leaders, with China, Dairy, Bell International, all gaining between 1.3% and 2.3%. Property names also showed strength in Hong Kong. We've been watching those closely, especially when we saw that the Chinese were about to put out a higher duty on property purchases. Strength was shown in SHK Properties, as well as China Resources Land, all up between 1.2% and 1.5%. That is positive for those names in that sector. It has been under pressure for the last couple weeks. EWH is the ETF that tracks stocks in Hong Kong, and it closed today at 21.18. Options are pricing in for the stock to potentially move around 43 cents for the remainder of this week, either up or down. IV is coming in at 20%, and the IV rank is at 43%, so it's still in that mid-range. Still has the potential to have some decent movement in the stock. Looking at the Shanghai Composite in China, advanced about 0.5%. You're seeing technology names as well as some consumer names all up. Basically, you see that those sectors are up between 4.6% and 7.1%. ASHR is the ETF here in the United States that will have the 300 top stocks from the Shanghai Index. If you're interested in getting Chinese exposure, This is how you could do it here in the States with this ETF, trading at 24.90, pricing in the potential to move about 71 cents either up or down in the stock for the remainder of this week. Vols at 23%, which is on the lower end of its 52-week range. So not a huge expectation of big violent moves in China, even though we have the elections. India, the Sensex rose about 0.5% as well. Tata Motors really moved up about 6.5%. Had upbeat analyst comments. We also see Gale, Asian Paints, Power Grid, ICICI Bank as all up by between 1.6% and 2.9%. We're also seeing Suzuki and Sun Pharma, they lagged, falling between 1% and 3.4%. We're going to watch those names closely. Now, these names are also represented in the ETF EPI that's traded here in the United States. Right now, the stock went out overnight at 21.43. Options are pricing in the potential for it to move about 44 cents. For the remainder of this week, implied volatility is right around 21, which is on the lower third, about 35% as far as ranks. So not a huge expectation of big moves in those Indian stocks or that ETF. In Europe right now, we're seeing basically most of the major indices trading flatline right now. You see participants are basically waiting to see what's going to happen here in the United States. The latest round of polls that are coming out, it's just too close to call, even though the sentiment is falling more in the Clinton camp. Right now, you're seeing one of the barometers that I watch is the currency markets. We saw strength in the yen. We're also seeing that there is the euro. Hasn't changed very much overnight and into this new session. Basically trading against the dollar at about 1.104 on the euro. One thing that I will bring to light is that there was some industrial production data that came out. It was weaker than expected. That has impacted the European bond markets. You're actually seeing that bond prices in front of the election, and now with this weaker than expected industrial production, specifically out of Germany, has gotten a little bit of a uptick in the bond, so we'll see if that bid continues. Taking a look at Germany right now, the DAX is down by about 0.2%. You have financials like Commerzbank and Deutsche Bank. They're weighing on the market. They're down about 2.2% and 1.15% or 1.5%. Now exporters like BMW, Daimler, Chrysler, Volkswagen, all showing losses between 0.3% and 0.1%. Right now, taking a look at that, that's telling you that basically you're seeing institutions and traders tighten up in front of the election results, especially in the exporters. All of these stocks that I mentioned are represented in an ETF called EWG that trades here in the United States, tracks those stocks. It went out last night at 25.56. The options are pricing in the potential for it to move around 53 cents for the remainder of the week, either up or down. So the stock basically coming in mid-range as far as its volatility. So not a huge heightened expectation of violent moves, but still it's pricing in some potential for some violent moves, either up or down. And we have a binary event that could do that. Taking a look at London and the FTSE, trading higher by about 0.1%. You're seeing consumer names like Associated British Foods spiking about 5.3%, had upbeat results overnight. Select miners and energy names are also outperforming with Rheingold Resources, BHP Billiton, Royal Dutch Shell, all gaining between 0.6 and 1.7%. On the downside, you still see that the home builders, they're continuing to struggle. We talked about Persimmon, Barrett Developments, Taylor Wimpey, all down between 0.9% and 1.4%. There's concern that the rising home prices in London and the UK in general is going to put pressure on these property names. We're going to keep an eye on that, see if that continues. But we were discussing that and reporting that yesterday. EWU is the ETF that tracks these stocks and many more in the UK. Traded last night, went out at 29.90. Watch this one. The implied volatility is ticking up, but not much. It's right around 20%. IV rank is 29%. We want to see if the property names start to put some pressure there. And of course, we're going to watch to see how the elections play out here in the United States. Finally, the French CAC. French CAC is trading flat this morning. Credit Agricole has jumped about 5% in reaction to basically upbeat results. Other financials like BNP Paribas and Société Générale are showing some losses, about 0.5% and 0.7% respectively. You are seeing Mattel, ticker symbol MT here in the United States, but it has slumped about 6.7% in France on the CAC. There's cautious guidance right now, and that's overshadowing the better than expected results. So we're going to see if that actually flows through in the ADR. MT is the ticker symbol you can watch here in the States. EWQ is the ETF that tracks these stocks and more in an ETF. It was trading at $23.89 on the close yesterday, pricing in the potential to move about 75 cents. And the IV and IV rank are right around 23% for the implied volatility, which is on the heightened end of the IV rank over the last 52 weeks. 72. So we could have some potential violent moves in France, and we're going to keep an eye on that. Well, that is it for the overnight action. Stay tuned. 9:30 Eastern Time, 8:30 Central on the opening bell. What's hot on the open? I'm going to cover Clinton, Trump. What are not only the sectors that we should be looking at, but what are some of the names that we could start adding to our watch list to keep an eye on? Maybe look for some opportunity. Till then, we'll see you at 9:30. Have a great morning and have a cup of coffee. Get out and vote if you haven't, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.